Chris, thank you for joining me this morning. We're talking, you join us as we're, hi there, we're just talking this morning, Chris Philp, in regard to that report by Professor Alexis J. We're talking about what Elon Musk has said this week about Jess Phillips and so on. The Conservatives had 18 months to implement the 20 recommendations from Alexis J's report about those paedophile gangs. They didn't do it. Now you're saying Labour should. Why didn't you do that when you were in the Home Office?
Well, Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I think we did take a lot of action in government, going right back to the 2014 report into Rotherham. The independent inquiry into child sexual abuse you referred to was, of course, commissioned by a Conservative. Sajid Javid, who you and I know well, commissioned further research into it. And then, in response to that report you're referring to, Rishi Sunak established the Grooming Gangs Task Force about a year and a half ago, which led to over 550 arrests of suspected paedophiles, and in addition to that, mandated police forces to start collecting data, better data, as recommended by that report. And in fact, when the election was called last year, I was personally, as the Bill Minister, taking a bill through Parliament, and one of the things that bill did was create a new legal obligation on people in certain positions to report child sexual exploitation and abuse where they encountered it, which again was one of the recommendations. So I don't accept this point that the last government didn't act. They did. But those actions, to be honest, Peter, did not go far enough, because we've now heard in the last few days Simon Danchuk, the former Labour MP for Rochdale, telling us that the then Labour Party chair instructed him not to talk about the issue, to cover it up, because of concerns about Muslim votes. We've had Oldham Council now formally, as a council, requesting a national inquiry, and I think it is disgraceful that the Labour government, that Jess Phillips, Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer are refusing to hold this national statutory inquiry.
You would hold it, would you? If you were Home Secretary, you'd say, right, let's do this, full public inquiry?
Yes, absolutely. No, it needs to be.
So why didn't you do it when you were in government? You had 14 years.
Well, we did. So, as I've already said, Peter, we did initiate the original Rotherham inquiry, the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse.
But if you feel so strongly about a public inquiry, why didn't you do that?
Well, and that latter one was, of course, a public inquiry, but we now need to go further, and it should be done immediately. And it is shocking that they're not doing it, the government, the Labour government. It should look into the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, including Keir Starmer's time as Director of Public Prosecutions, to make sure that he did what he was supposed to, because we don't know at the moment. It should look at the police. There are some examples.
He was praised by Conservatives. When he was Director of Public Prosecutions, he was praised by Conservatives for the job he did. Surely you're jumping on the bandwagon now against Keir Starmer.
Well, look, I mean, we need to find out the facts, right? I mean, he was praised based on what was known at the time, but we do need an inquiry to get properly into the bottom of what the CPS did. There are cases, I believe, the CPS rejected, dating back to that time. Police forces failed. On some occasions, they even arrested the fathers of girls that the dad was trying to rescue, and in some cases, even arrested the girl, the victim themselves. And let's not forget, we are talking about young, vulnerable, early teenage girls who were systemically and in an organised way gang raped over years or decades. There was a cover-up by some local councils, and we've got to get to the truth. And it is wrong that the Labour government is standing in the way of getting to the truth.
OK, I want to ask you now about social care and about the health service, because the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has been speaking to the media, as you have this morning, saying that they're going to implement measures that would mean 1 million appointments are freed up, that they can get waiting lists down and so on. What do you make of those plans?
Well, I think what he is trying to do is continue the work that started under the last government with the community diagnostic centres that I've seen working in my own constituency in Croydon, in Purley Hospital, for example. So these community diagnostic centres and the faster referrals by GPs to testing, those have been happening already, and the fact the Labour government are continuing them, I think, is very welcome. What is alarming, however, is the fact that the Labour government, even though they promised to have plans for NHS reform, actually don't appear to have any plans at all. And when it comes to social care, they're kicking the can down the road until 2028, even though Wes Streeting promised before the election that Labour had a plan for social care.
You had 14 years to sort out social care. Why didn't you?
And we commissioned the Dilnot report, and in fact,
and then rejected it.
That we hang on, Peter. The changes which the Dilnot report proposed, for example, the cap the £86,000 cap on social care costs for families was due to come into force in October of this year, October 2025. It was funded with £8.6 billion of funding over 2 years. And Wes Streeting, again, 2 weeks before the election, he promised that he would implement that plan, the Conservative plan, and then a couple of weeks later, it got cancelled. Again, Labour lied to the electorate in order to win an election, and once again, as with so many other things, broke their promises. And that's why the public feels so let down, and it's going to cost families and older people tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds extra because Labour broke their promise. And look, we are going to work constructively with this new commission because we are here to work in the national interest, but kicking the can down the road for 3 years, frankly, is not good enough. So we are going to be, I think, insisting on demanding a much, much faster timetable and asking the Labour Party to actually honour their election commitment and implement those Conservative changes that were due to start in October this year.
I know you've got other interviews today. I just want to ask you one more question, and this is in regard to Britain being vulnerable to ballistic missile attacks. Holes in defence shown. This is a big investigation by the Sunday Times newspaper saying that NATO is saying that we should have more contribution to our military, to the hardware that is there. I know there's a strategic defence review happening at the moment, but essentially the charge is that under 14 years of the Conservatives, that military hardware was run down, not replaced, and not enough money was spent on it.
Well, of course, we are exceeding at the moment our 2% of GDP defence expenditure target. We have two.
But when you strip out the nuclear deterrent, you're down to 1.6% of GDP.
Well, you can't strip out the nuclear deterrent, Peter. We're, along with France, we're the only Western European country to have a nuclear deterrent. You can't strip that out. It's a vital part of our nation's defences, and I strongly support maintaining that nuclear deterrent. We have two capable aircraft carriers. I think we're the only European country to have two aircraft carriers. So we've got a very capable military, but we do need to do more. And we are exceeding our 2% NATO target, but we need to do more. We pledged, the Conservatives pledged in government, to get defence expenditure up to 2.5% of GDP. That is a pledge that the new Labour government has not matched, and I think they should match it. They've got money. They've got £30 billion to spend on Ed Miliband's crazy plans to shut down our domestic energy industry. They should be spending that money not on Ed Miliband's crazy plans, but instead on making sure we're fixing social care, as we just discussed, that we're spending enough money on defence, that pensioners can have their winter fuel payments, that farmers are not under attack. Labour has their spending priorities back to front. They spent all this money on, inflation-busting pay rises for their trade union paymasters. Labour's spending priorities are wrong. I think looking after pensioners, looking after farmers, looking after working people and the defence of our nation, those are the right priorities, not the ones that Labour are chasing.